We'll just continue with the AEW issues because I like AEW, but there's issues, okay? There's just issues going on. And I'm actually going to pull up Situate so I get this quote right. I want to get this quote right because there's a lot of words. Cultaholic were the ones who tweeted this at Cultaholic on X. Tony Khan reportedly changed the script for AEW Double or Nothing, leaving most people with no idea what they were doing until an hour or so before the show. It legitimately is more like 2019 WWE than it is to 2019 AEW. And the source here is Brian Alvarez. He said Tony switched the script on yesterday's pay-per-view multiple times during the afternoon. Most people, not just the wrestlers, have no idea what they're doing until the day of the show, and sometimes not until an hour or so before the show. People have flown to towns and given nothing to do. Others are begged the day before the show to please get to the town so they can do something last minute. He knows what he wants to do for the pay-per-views, although often changes. But as far as week-to-week TV, everything is booked show to show. For most people, he's incredibly difficult to get a hold of. In some ways, it's legitimately more like 2019 WWE than it is 2019 AEW, where he was much easier to get a hold of. He was very complex. He had very complex long-term storytelling. Many people had a good idea of what they were doing and where things were going. And often, most of the following week's entire Dynamite card was booked and announced before the previous week's Dynamite had even ended. Remember when Excalibur would run down the 24 matches in 30 seconds following the week? It's a night and day. It's night and day the changes, and people who work for the company in all the roles from the wrestlers to the office talk about it in all caps all the time, Sarah. So the fact that this is being reported now and after Double or Nothing for what you saw on TV on the screen was pretty good. I would say it was a pretty good show. Nonsense, whatnot, but you're playing a dangerous game. And if you go down this line, it's already being reported now. You're still in infancy stages. Like, keep in mind, you're in infancy stages of your company, and you're being compared to 2019 Vince, who legitimately booked a bodybuilding contest as the main event of Raw. We're getting at, like, that's insane.
Yeah, I think this kind of stuff doesn't surprise me just because, Tony is not experienced in owning a wrestling company, running a wrestling company. Like, there's going to be speed bumps along the way, obviously. So it's, the way that they try to paint it as AEW is so incredible. Everybody loves their job. There's no problems here ever. Nothing. We already got rid of CM Punk. He was the only problem. Like, that is such a delusional way to like try and advertise your company, because then when things like this come out, then everybody is just looking at you like you're a hypocrite, you're an idiot, because why are you doing this and saying these things when every company in the entire world is not perfect. So stop painting it out to be that it is, because then this is why the internet loves to hate you. Because it's like, look, it's going against what you said. Again, the things that you're trying to sell us is proven to be false again. But this kind of thing, it's like, it is a little funny, because I think that there are things that he does when it comes to wrestling, not beyond that are very Vince like. And so I just I kind of chuckle at that, just because he really wants to establish himself as somebody who's a serious businessman in wrestling, and he would never be like Vince. And then he's doing actual things like this that are reminiscent of something that Vince would do. And so it's just kind of ironic, I would say. Like,
so it's so
because it's not as easy as he thinks it is. I think that's the other thing, is like, yeah, Vince was very successful for a very long time, but we can't act like everything that he did on a weekly basis was great. It wasn't. Even stuff during the Attitude Era, the peak era that everybody wants to compare their wrestling company to, or what they want to try and achieve with their wrestling company. There were some bad things that happened on TV during the Attitude Era that were cringy, that were inappropriate, that were over the line. That was like, how did this get on TV? Or who thought this was a good idea? Like, there was plenty of that. So it's like, that's going to happen, So it's like, this happening in AEW is not surprising, but the fact that it's being leaked and talked about makes it seem like, okay, this is a bigger issue than oh, it's happened this past week, you know, because like people were
Yeah.
talking about the Saraya versus Mariah May match getting cut from Dynamite. Okay, well, if that was in just this past week and that was the only incident we're talking about, that's one thing. But the fact that it's this long-winded of a reveal from Alvarez makes it seem like, okay, this has been going on for a while and it's bothering
Right.
people enough that we're putting it out there now.
Yeah, it's just a shit show. It really is, and it just, to me, I'm nervous for it because it's just becoming another wrestling show
Mhm.
where if it felt like for a while they were trying to be up there with WWE, and they're still there. Like they're not going to be dying out anytime soon. It's still a good product, but you're taking steps backwards when you should be moving forward.
Well, because I've said this so many times, but like the more you try to not be like somebody is you're either going to get yourself in trouble because you're going to end up being exactly what you're trying to avoid, or you're not going to be able to establish yourself as something completely different, and that's why you run into these problems. And I feel like that is what is happening with Tony. Is like he's so concerned with what WWE is doing and trying to be the opposite of what they're doing because there's such an emphasis on we're not sports entertainment, we're wrestling, like we care about this, like we would never do that, that's a WWE thing. But then it's like, but then when you do end up doing things that WWE has done before in the past, obviously because they are a wrestling company, the longest wrestling company on planet Earth, like yeah, you're going to do things that they've done before and you probably should be doing the things that they've done before. But it just is going to continue to be an issue if they don't do it in the right way, or they don't like,
Mhm.
you know, I don't know. There's a lot that Tony could learn, and I feel like he just doesn't surround himself with the proper people, and that's an issue that we've talked about so many times, and it's just going to keep being an issue because this type of stuff should not be leaked out if
No.
you had things under control.
Yeah, shit's not getting leaked out from the WWE camp like that.
No one's saying anything about Triple H changing scripts and throwing shit out and not telling people what's going to happen or telling them like a minute before their match who's winning. Like that's not happening. That was a Vince thing. None of that has come out about Triple H. So